Reddit, tell me your glitch in the matrix stories. Part 2. I'm walking into work and going through one of the aisles. The aisles have shelves and stands that are completely bolted to the ground, so there's no empty space under them. They're completely sealed off. As I'm walking towards my department, a random super ball rolls out from under the stands. My mind was blown. I then picked up, bounced it, and hit my friend in the face. My friend has this reoccurring dream where he is in his room trying to sleep. He looks at the clock and it is some random time. Then a shadowy figure enters the room and walks towards him and envelopes him in a bitter cold. He wakes up and the clock is exactly 5 minutes before the time in his dream, like it's about to happen. I got up in the morning, saw the sun in a weird position, checked compass, it said west. The sun rose from the west that day. I told everyone I knew, but they all said east. I checked 3 compasses that day. That's vaguely similar to the time the hot and cold faucets switched places. It wasn't something I ever thought about, but then I saw someone in a thread somewhere recall how confused they were as a child one day when they woke up and all of the hot and cold taps in the world had switched to the opposite sides of the sink tub, etc. As soon as I read that, I went, hang on, I actually do remember that. And I did. I remember being somewhere below 7 when it happened and telling my mother that all the taps were on the wrong side suddenly. She scoffed, of course, and told me I was confused. They never changed back though, to my knowledge. I once walked out of an Applebee's and looked up to see the sky divided in half. One half was lighter shade than the other with a distinct line separating the two. It was witnessed by several other people I was with. No drugs, and I've never understood it. I had a strange experience inside an Applebee's. My family and I were in the process of driving when we came across an Applebee's we had never been to before. There was no reason to have ever gone to this location since it was pretty far from our house. Once we walked in, we all felt really weird. The place was packed and it was completely silent. And the silence never changed once we had been standing in the entrance for a while, even though there were tons of people in there. No one was eating, we didn't talk about leaving, we just all walked out in unison. When I was about 7, something freaky kept happening. I would go to bed and my parents would tuck me in. I loved that. I would slowly drift to sleep, only to awaken at 3:02 a.m., falling from the ceiling onto my bed. My bed sheets tucked perfectly underneath my body where I had just been. Perfectly made bed. This happened to me at least 5 or so times. I, to this day, have no clue what the heck happened to me. No way, this is legit. It would happen to me as well. Only I knew I had fallen from very high up because I would wake up and still be bouncing on my bed. My only possible explanation was, in my sleep, I must have crawled out of my tight-bound bedsheet, stood up on the bed, and let myself fall backwards, only to wake as my body kept bouncing. When I was younger, I had serious sleepwalking episodes. Just going for a walk once, I saw a car turn down a road that was a dead end. Literally 5 seconds or so less later, I looked down the road and the car is gone. Wasn't in a driveway or a garage, just gone. This happened to me the other day. My eyes were caught on this weird flickering light on the right side of the back bumper of a car ahead of me, in the next lane over on the freeway. It was like the reflection of a pond or a mirror, but just hanging in space. I passed the car up, looked in my rear view mirror, and the car was gone. It was red. It should have stood out, but there was just no car there. I have an overwhelming, terrified reaction to any time I see footage or recreations of the D-Day invasion of Normandy. I can watch anything about any type of war, battle, what have you, but for some reason, I don't know why, the D-Day invasion strikes something in me. The worst time was when I watched Saving Private Ryan. My heart felt like it was going to pound out of my chest. I felt a sense of panic that I have never felt, and tears started streaming down my face. I was paralyzed in my seat. I had the strangest "you've been there" feeling that I've never had before. I've always felt a strong link to events I saw in films of World War II. I first noticed it when I was 6 years old, and it continues to this day. I'm American, but the films of German war activity resonates with me more than the Allied stuff does. When I watch some battle films from that era, especially from the Eastern Front, it feels like I was there. Had a dream of a non-existent part of my house, down to the closet and size of space in it, in like the 5th grade. A few years later, we have a construction done on our house and get an addition, only it was exactly the same as I had dreamt it. Freaked out when I saw it for the first time. That just reminded me when I was little, I had a reoccurring dream that we had the stairway that went down to a basement. We don't have a basement. Years later, I went to a friend's house and it was the same exact basement from my dream, stairway and everything. My dad told me a story of one time he went out with my mom, his sister and her boyfriend at one time. They'd accidentally locked the cat inside the washroom and were gone for the house for a few hours. When they returned to the house and someone went to the washroom, they looked at the ceiling to find cat poop perfectly coiled on the roof as if it were on the ground. They had no explanation for it. Cats don't obey the laws of physics. I have no recollection of this, but my mom tells me that when I was 5, there was a news story commemorating an anniversary of the attacks on Pearl Harbor. After the story ended, I turned to her and gave her this 2-hour-long report about how I used to be a first mate on the ship, and I listed off its location before it sank. I described the crew, many I listed by name, the captain, and even described the sights and smells of the area. Later that day, she researched it all at the local library and confirmed my story. To this day, I don't remember what happened, but she continues to talk about that moment, especially when I describe my death. Definitely a past life recollection. My dad's boss said his son was 4 and described perfectly his former life in China. When I was in the 1st grade, I was taking a test when I noticed blood dripping on the desk. It starts to gather and I touch my nose and figure out that I'm having a nosebleed. By now, there's a huge puddle on the desk and I'm so embarrassed that everybody will see. So I asked the teacher if I could go to the bathroom while trying to cover my face. She doesn't really seem to notice anything and says yes. I run into the bathroom and go to wash the blood off my hands. But as I put them in the sink, I don't see anything. I look up and there's no blood on my face. I walk back to my desk and there's no trace of any blood at all. I have yet to figure out what the heck happened to me that day. All the different dreams posted here made me think of a similar occurrence. Shortly after moving to a different town from college, a good friend from home died. I went back home for the funeral, touched his hand in the coffin and said goodbye. That night I was in the process of having a dream and he appeared. He told me that he had something to show me. He asked me what I knew of astral projection and explained that in the realm he's in now, he can take me out of my dream to the astral plane. We went all kinds of neat places and he then told me that he's safe and happy and that he had to wait to tell me because he couldn't find me in my new town. He stopped talking abruptly, grabbed my shoulder and said, 12:51. And I immediately woke up to my mom yelling at me. I looked at the clock and it was 12:51. My mom said she never said the time, just to get up. I really want this to be real and be what happens when you die. I was with my siblings on vacation, ambling around a French town, got distracted by something, and when I rejoined them, they told me about a guy who looked exactly like me, walked like me, and everything who I'd just missed. Having a theory about doppelgangers, they never seem to meet each other. I asked where he went. They pointed to the shop he'd just gone into. Excited, I went in, but only the shopkeeper was there, and the shop was tiny. I had a similar experience in high school. A kid transferred to my school knowing everything about me. Not just a bit of background, but he had distinct memories of us from early childhood up until about 3 years beforehand. After that, he turned out to have been at numerous places at the same time during the 3-year gap. We were both in Disneyland at the same time. Either he was a master troll or stalker, or I live a secret double life. My sister was married in a city called Hansi, in the state of Mariana in India. I went to visit her once, and in the evening we were sitting in her home and chatting with her in-laws. Suddenly, she asks me to note the constant noise that was there in the background. It was like a mammoth windmill operating nearby. There is no such thing there. And as I noticed it, she said the noise stops immediately when someone talks about it. Lo and behold, it did. Every time I tried to talk about it, the noise stopped. It scared the life out of me. In my parents' living room, there's a picture of me hanging on the wall dated 52 years before I was born. It's probably your grandfather and you just look a lot like him. Nope, Mom picked it up at a flea market for $3. I just emailed her to ask if she could send me a picture of it. If she does, I'll edit the original. At a friend's party when I was 13 or so, I went out to the driveway and looked up at the stars. Suddenly, the brightest just fell. Like it was glued to the sky and suddenly came undone. It fell straight behind the houses on the other side of the street. It was surreal. I've seen that happen, and I've had friends across town confirm the same sighting at the right place in the sky time. It wasn't like a shooting star, more like a huge glowy ball, like a comet, but it moved as fast as a shooting star. Knocked out a baby front tooth early in elementary school. Adult tooth grew in. Knocked out same tooth a couple of years later. Another adult tooth grew in. Clearly there is some tooth fairy and she likes me. She gave me money and another tooth for free. Maybe you're part shark. Go knock it out again. I used to work at a video store. Dad and daughter came in to rent a movie. I jokingly told them they had a late fee of $898.58 on their account. They both looked at me in shock. I told them I was just joking. Dad tells me his daughter just got her first paycheck. She brings it out to show me. $898.58. What kind of first job did she have? Sorry, caps lock.